Good day everyone, I hope you're doing well. In this presentation, I will be discussing about the REA data model and the special topics in REA modeling. Here we have the table of contents. First is the design and implement the database system. Second is the use and the nature of entity relationship diagrams. And finally is the content of REA diagram, what REA models reveals about the business activities. So database design process is data modeling is the first step in the process of database design. So it also refers to a collection of processes that assist the progress of designing, implementation, and maintenance of enterprise data management system. Let's say if you want to make a programming for a company, there must be a data, namely the database that is processed, how to process the data obtained so that it produces the desired output or output that they're expecting to become. And there are two types of database techniques. First is entity relationship diagrams, and second is REA data model that we're discussing next. Next is what is entity relationship diagram. An ER diagram describes how entities relate to each other. In other words, it illustrates a picture or a framework of your business or a certain business process. Entities are the things that we need to store the data about. It's an aspect of your business that needs to store data such as sales, revenues, and etc. And an ER diagram used to design or debug relational database in the fields of software engineering, business information system, education, and research. In addition, an ERD entity is a definable thing such as people, objects, or concepts relate to each other within a system. So why would we use ERD? ERD can be useful for analyzing complex data or lots of data. And when it comes to business analysts, it mainly used by many analysts when designing a database. And understanding the relationship between entities can also help us root out any uncertainty or unnecessary process within our organization. For example, for accounting information system database design, the decision is understanding what entity should be included. Here is the variations of ERD, including panel A, B, C, and D. So here I provided another example that can be used in ERD, such as online bookstore. It shows the major business entities of online bookstore as well as their interrelationships. So it consists of typical entities like book, author, publisher, customer, etc. The REA data models is a model or conceptual model that specify and design specifically for accounting information system that serve the needs of all users in an organization. The REA diagram consists of three entities types, which are resources, like the things of economic value exchange, they are resources, and events are the actual giving and getting the resources, like the business activities, and agents are the people who actually make the change, like employees, for example. In structuring relationships, the REA model prescribes a basic pattern for how the three types of entities, resources, events, and agents relate to one another. So rule 1 is each event is linked to at least one resources that it affects. For example, resources A must link to event A, and resources B must link to event B. Rule 2 is each event is linked to at least one other event. For example, event A is linked to event B. And lastly, rule 3 is each event is linked to at least two agents. For example, event A is linked to agent A and the agent B is linked to event B, and so on. So for example, event A is linked to agent A and agent B, and event B is linked to agent B and agent C. So here, to be exact, what I said before, as you can see, this is the standard REA template. Here we have an example in terms of accounting information system to establish a give to get exchange. So this is all the business process cycle that it's included in REA models. In developing a REA diagram, the modeling process as applied to creating a REA diagram involves the following steps. So step 1 is to identify the events about which management wants to collect information. Steps 2 is to identify the resources affected by the events and the agents who participated. And step 3 is to determine the cardinalities between the relationships. So here's an example of cardinality. There's a symbol, and cardinalities includes the numbers, like maximum or minimum, and there's an example of like entity A and entity B, and the meaning behind the symbol. So here we have another example of different types of relationships. So as you can see on the right side, there's a panel A. It's one-to-one relationships. It is mostly used to split an entity to provide information clear and concise. As you can see on the panel A, both maximums are 1, so this is a one-to-one relationships. So in panel B, it describes as one-to-many relationships. It is one-to-many relationship. It refers to between two entities, example X and Y, in which an instance of X may be linked to many instances of Y, but an instance of Y is linked to only one instances of X. So as you can see in panel B, the maximum number of customers can be involved in each cell is 1. As you can see, there's an arrow in the cell, and then there's 1 in customer. So the maximum number of cells can be associated with any individual's customer is many. So yeah, that's why it's one-to-many relationships. And panel C is just an opposite of one-to-many relationships. At last is many-to-many relationships. It refers to relationship between two entities, X and Y, in which X may be linked to many instances of Y and so on. As you can see in panel B and panel D, the maximum number of inventory items can be sold in one is many. It can be sold in one cell is many, because the arrow represents like a many, and the maximum number of cells that can occur for a particular inventory item is many. That's why it's called many-to-many relationships. Next is integrating REA diagrams across cycles. In individual REA diagrams can be combined to form an integrated REA diagram by first merging redundant resource entities. So it basically means the REA diagrams for individual transaction cycles are built around basic give get economic exchanges. Here an example, we can say the expenditure cycles tells you how the company gets inventory, but doesn't tell you what becomes of the inventory. The second one is merging redundant event entities. For example, some events in example disburse cash or paying out money may appear in multiple transaction cycles. such as the expenditure cycle and the payroll cycle. So once an REA diagram has been developed, it can be used to design a well-structured relational database. So relational database is a type of database that stores and provides access to data points that are related to one another. So yeah, there are 3 steps to implementing a an REA diagram in relational database, which are the following. First is to create a table for each distinct entity in the diagram, and each many-to-many relationships. Second step is to assign attributes to appropriate table, like identify primary keys and concatenated keys for one-to-many relationships. And the last step is to use foreign keys to implement one-to-one and one-to-many relationships. Using REA diagrams to retrieve information from a database. Learn how to use our completed diagrams and tables to retrieve information for performance evaluation, like basically in accounting. And in traditional accounting information system elements, there are journals, ledger, financial statements, management reports. In a traditional accounting information system, journals provide a chronological listing of transactions. So the information found in a journal is contained in the tables used to record data about events. So ledgers include much information about assets that is traditionally recorded would be stored in the resource table. For financial statements, information contained in both resources and events using a set of queries. A queries refers to like a question, especially to address to an organization. In creating managerial reports, the non-financial and financial data is integrated to make both types of data easily accessible to management. For example, if the sales table includes the time of sales, this information could be used to plan staffing needs or preparing needs. That is all from me. Thank you everyone for watching, and hope you have a nice day, and goodbye.